Thanks, mate. It's more about my opening ability. Gary, g'day. Hope you're well, mate. How would you sum up the tour, the Indian tour particularly?
Yeah, it's been a challenging tour at times. The T20 games immediately after the World Cup came very, very quickly, and we needed to, I think, learn how to play against a very, very good Indian side over here. And whilst we weren't close to that first game, we probably didn't quite get to the levels that we wanted to in the following two games. We then had a different group of guys come in for the test match, and whilst it's disappointing to lose the series, to take some points away from the draw in the match in Kanpur, I think is still a really good achievement. A lot of teams come here and struggle, so to pick up any points over there, I think is really, really valuable to us.
I was just keen to touch on a few players, a couple of players. Where do you see Ross Taylor at the moment? And to kind of follow on from that, how much does his past and how he's represented New Zealand and the record that he's got, I suppose, how much do you weigh that up in terms of how he's going at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, Ross has had a disappointing tour by his standards, but he's been an exceptional player for New Zealand for a long period of time. So he's not the only guy that's come to India or Asian conditions and struggled over here. I think there's some factors behind it, with the lack of match time ability beforehand. We had a number of trainings, or a couple of trainings before the second test, that were washed out as well, which didn't sort of allow us to perhaps get the complete preparation that might have just allowed the guys to have a better chance. But there are things that were the same for both teams. We understand that. I think the real thing is here that India were just better than us in their conditions. They've had a lifetime of experience and, I guess, readying in those conditions. Likewise, when we play in New Zealand, we feel the same confidence when we go in. So you have to be at your very, very best to beat these guys over here and actually have some luck go your way as well.
Were you okay with how he played that second innings?
I think Ross will look back and be disappointed in that himself. So it's a fine balance here, though, between trying to play aggressively and put the spinners under some pressure, and also trusting your defence to bat for long periods. And if you look throughout the whole test, I think Mayank Agarwal was one of the few players that actually managed to do that. And we still went past the outside edge of his bat on a regular basis as well. So I think there was only two or three other players in the whole test match that reached 50. Agarwal was obviously an exception in getting to 150, and I thought he probably showed the template of how you should try and play over here, which is still that mix of aggression and solid defence.
And just lastly from me, to move on to Kane, has there been, I still take it you're waiting to get a full assessment on it when you get home, but is there any update on how he is? And does surgery become more likely considering how seemingly niggly it's becoming?
I think surgery is unlikely. With the tendon injuries around the elbow, my understanding of the situation from talking to our physios is that all that surgery will do was ensure that rehab is done. And if we don't have to cut a tendon, then our choice is not to do that as well. So Kane's going along okay. I said right from the start, I expect it to be a sustained period of time. I think last time, if you look after the World Test Championship and then coming back before the IPL and the T20 World Cup, was about 8 or 9 weeks. So I expect it's somewhere in that time frame again.
Good man. Thank you, mate. Appreciate it.
Hey, Gary, Luke here from Newside, mate. How are you?
Good, thanks, Luke.
That's good. Hey, just going back to Ross Taylor, you said that, you think he will be disappointed. Were you disappointed with how he came out?
I think whenever people go out and don't get the runs that they want to get, then you always have that disappointment. But I mean, you run through gambits of emotion throughout the whole test match, the highs and lows, and they change, I guess, consistently. Whenever you're bowled out for 62 in a test match, then there's obviously disappointment. So it's up to, I think, the whole group to I guess, reflect on their performances and then find ways to keep improving.
Yeah, obviously he wasn't, the only one who struggled this tour, but you just look sort of 6 months ago, he was 50 odd not out in the World Test Championship final. So do you guys still believe, or do you still believe he's the best number 4 going forward for this team?
I think the thing that's encouraging for our team is we have more options now than what we did have a year or 2 years ago. And you've seen the emergence of Will Young and Daryl Mitchell in particular, who have come onto the test scene and done really well. But let's not also forget that Ross Taylor has an amazing record behind him as well. He's one of New Zealand's, or been one of New Zealand's premier batsmen for a long, long period of time. And you don't lose that class just over one tour.
So that's a yes, is it?
It's a yes for what?
To Ross Taylor still being, the number 4 going ahead in your eyes?
Well, there's still time that we've got to play that out. I mean, I've got to get home and speak with the selectors and have a conversation with Ross as well around where he sees his game going forward.
Thanks, mate. And just lastly, Daryl Mitchell, what do you see him as going forward? Because obviously he's an all-rounder. He can bowl, he can obviously bat. You guys batted him at 3 with Kane out. Do you see him as a genuine all-rounder for you guys, or do you see him more as a batsman?
I think in the test game right now, probably see him more as a batsman. We know he offers some bowling skills, but I guess in a way that's a little bit unproven still at the test level anyway. So I think for Daryl, he batted in the number 3 position in this test match, and that was really we didn't want to, I guess, adjust the rest of the lineup too much. So it was a straight swap in there, and Daryl showed his versatility. I mean, he's done it recently at the World Cup where we had him as an opener, and he was reasonably successful in that role for us as well. He's batted at 6 or 7 and scored 100 in a test match. And so I think that's one of the things you always look for when you pick touring squads is that versatility in people, and Daryl certainly has that in spades.
Thank you, Matt.
Hi, Gary. Good to see you. Just on Kane, talking 8 or 9 weeks, that sort of sounds like maybe he'll be back for South Africa. That would be the first series you'd be looking for in terms of a potential return?
Yeah, we're trying not to put timeframes on it at this stage, Andrew. I think we've looked to do that in the past, and probably games have come a little bit quicker than what we've wanted them to. I think one of the things that people need to understand is the management of Kane through the T20 game was much, much easier because it's about load on the elbow. So as soon as you enter the test arena and you're looking for longer periods of time of training and then batting as well, that load is what I guess tipped him over the edge in this case with his elbow. So in the shorter forms of the game, it becomes more manageable. In test cricket, it's tougher, but Kane's doing it tough. Don't get me wrong. He loves playing for New Zealand. He hates the thought of missing any cricket, let alone test cricket for New Zealand.
Yeah, obviously Kane's also been away for 8 months or so away from home. But just in terms of looking back in this year now that it's come to an end, how much time and resource has been spent, I guess, having to worry or to manage Kane's elbow? Has it been a pretty big ongoing sort of, I guess, task?
Not really. I think once you have made the decision whether he's available or not, then you just put the plans in place around that. There has been some time during tournaments where we've had to just talk about it, get him to pull back a little bit from what he naturally wants to do. He's a prodigious trainer. He loves hitting balls. He loves being and feeling prepared, I think, for the matches fully. So that's been, I guess, a change of mindset for him to get his head around, but I think he's adapted really well to that.
It's obviously been a long period away for some guys with the World Cup as well. Just as you look towards Bangladesh, I know you're going to come home and talk to the selectors and all that, but you're sort of expecting, aside from injuries, it'll be full availability for that first test series, given its World Test Championship and whatnot?
Yeah, I think so. I guess the only thing will be is around those injuries and just making sure that we're really clear on where people are at. But at this stage, see no reason to think that everyone won't be available. And
just in terms of injuries, it's just Devon's finger, or is Tim's groin an ongoing sort of concern, or is there anything else?
No, just Kane and Devon at this stage.
Rachin Ravindra began this test under the weather. Can you just tell us a bit more about what that was? Did he sort of just wake up on day 1 ill and not enough though that you wanted to leave him out?
I think the first 2 days he did it pretty tough, as other people have at different times during the tour as well. I mean, it's part of the touring life of India that sometimes that happens, and it can happen very quickly. And he was just feeling fluey, I guess Delhi Belly like as well. And you could see he got pretty washed out. The first morning of the test match was extremely hot. The I guess atmosphere, the moisture coming up from the ground from all the rain they had was pretty sapping, and I think that took it out of him in particular. But by day 3, he was just about back to his best, and certainly seeing a bit more of a smile on his face now.
And just on him, obviously his first 2 tests, he's a player who everyone sort of seems to agree has a big future. But we've seen some real promise from him in his first 2 matches with bat and with ball.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I mean, it's the first test in Kanpur is one where everyone expected it to spin square, but it didn't. It didn't really dust as we expected. And whilst he didn't pick up wickets in that test match, I thought the pace that he bowled gave him a really good chance on that wicket as well. And then I think he showed when he was obviously better. He didn't bowl a lot in the first couple of days here in Mumbai, and that was more around, I guess, how he was feeling and his ability to get through the days. When he did become fitter, he bowled a spell of 10 or so overs and picked up 3 wickets, and looked like he belonged here as well. There's no doubt we back his ability with the bat as well. He showed in Kanpur his ability to show that tenacity, the fighting spirit at the end of the game to help us hang on with Ajaz for that draw. He's got a big future in front of him, I'm sure.
And just lastly, one of the sort of things that was debated, definitely sort of around the team in between tests, was Will Somerville and whether Neil Wagner might come in for him. Was that something that was discussed by the team?
Not by the team, by the selectors. It was. We certainly discussed that and thought about that as an option as well. The wicket turned and did as we expected it to do. I think our 17 wickets were all taken by spinners. So I think in terms of justification of any decision around that, I don't like looking back in hindsight or anything like that, but I think the decision around playing the spin options was still the right one.
Okay, thanks, Gary.
G'day, Gary Lachlan here from NZC. Hope you're well. Just a couple from me. I want to touch on the batting side of things with Kane out, as you say, for a sustained period. When you look at the performances of Will Young, I think Tom sort of ended a bit of a slump there in that first test, and then Darren Mitchell, of course, it just sort of eases that pressure, probably, maybe, that when you've got obviously your talisman out there, when you've got him out with injury, you've got a few guys in the order there that can help, I guess, carry the load in his absence.
Yeah, well, I think we have high expectations of all our guys in the batting order. I mean, if you look from one right through the order, everyone's played significant innings at certain parts of their career, and even the tail have produced really important knocks for us at different times. So we have faith in all the guys that go out there. That's I guess part of the ups and downs of cricket, is people have good and bad days, and we're certainly not a team that jumps at shadows or is keen to, I guess, remove people after one poor performance. So that's part and parcel, I think, of the international game.
Cool. Just finally from me, it's been such a long trip for you guys and the team. Did you let out a bit of a sigh of relief when I guess yesterday's match was over, ignoring the result, but just knowing that you're at the end of it all after what's been 3-4 months?
I think guys are looking forward to getting home and back to New Zealand again and spending some time with their family and loved ones as well. So there's no doubt that time in a bubble becomes tiresome at times, but we also understand that it's a privileged position that we're in right now, that it's great that there is still cricket being played around the world, and whilst we're over here and people do find it difficult, it's still an absolute honour to be able to be here and represent New Zealand.
Hey, Gary, just one last one from me. Obviously, you haven't made it to the ground yet, and it's a long way from knowing what the pitch would be like, but is it fair to say that it might be a case that Ajaz gets 10 wickets in an innings, 14 in a test, and then doesn't play the next test because you'll go with seam?
Well, again, we need to look at those conditions and I guess be clear on what it is. I think it's fair to say that if you look at the test results in New Zealand the last 4 or 5 years, then it has definitely been seam dominated. And if you look at the quality of our seam attack, it's one of the reasons why I think we have done as well as what we have in the past 4 or 5 years. So I don't expect that will change enormously for us. We have, I guess, 4 quality bowlers in the last 12 months have forged a pretty formidable attack. And so I'm looking forward to getting those guys all back together again.
I take it Trent will be all go for the home summer?
Yeah, Trent will be available. So, looking forward to having Trent back as well. And, he'll be getting ready right now, hopefully.
Cool, mate. Thank you. Safe travels back.
Cheers.
Oh, all good. I think we pretty much